Bridge. For over 2 decades, from late President Ahmed Tijan Kaba of blessed memory to Ernest Kouma to now Madabiu, there's Lungi Bridge. And what we read from, news is in 3 months it should be up. What's the assured update on Lungi Bridge? Because too much information is flying around.
I was wondering at some point whether I was just here to listen, and I'll have a chance to have my bite since I'm keeping my eyes on the time. And
you would.
My dear brother from the Albert Academy, I'm very proud to see that he's wearing his colors of the greatest academic institution in Sierra Leone.
Thank you.
So I can see that he's done some research, but I think it is my job as his senior to point out the discrepancies in his research.
I expect that, sir.
Put out here just now. When he was speaking, he mentioned...
You would, please, but just touch on the Lungi Bridge, and then you end with his responding to what you wanted to respond to his issue.
Is a commitment that the government has made. If you say that news is flying around, as one of the premier media houses in the country, the only authoritative voice on news in this country should come from the government and our official channels. The last time we issued a press release on this subject was in 2023, and we outlined exactly the steps that had been taken in that press release, and we had announced, so there's not been anything new. What happened is recently, some people took that same press release, started sharing it around to essentially cause chaos. Here's the thing. The best judge of somebody's future action is their past action. President Bio is deeply committed to that elusive dream. Long before President Bio became president here, Emerson sang Lungi Bridge past the world done, past the rapture. This has become an elusive dream. There's a reason it's been a complex, difficult project. The last feasibility study puts the cost at over $1 billion. What President Bio does not want to do, and he will not do, is to mortgage the entire economy of this country to build one bridge. He doesn't want to do that. We did that in the 80s. We wanted to host the OAU summit here. We spent like we were drunken sailors. And what happened? After the pomp and pageantry of the ECOWAS summit, the OAU summit here, what happened? The economy collapsed. It's an expensive venture. It requires sane, steady, economic decisions. I can assure you that some of the conversations we're having, including on the Mineral Wealth Fund, which my brother pointed out here, are to ensure that we have the right economic tools to deliver on that promise responsibly and in the best interest of this country. It's very important for people to understand that. Complex conversations are ongoing. The company, in that press release I released last year, the architectural company is one of the best in the world. The China Railway, which is one of the largest and most formidable, have come and they've done studies. The conversations are now around the financing model. And this is why the Mineral Wealth Fund should be something that we're excited about as Sierra Leoneans, because it gives us the opportunity to see, without going to borrow now on our current asset that we have, we can borrow maybe or mobilize resources based on unexplored and unexploited mineral wealth that we have, the natural resources that we have, to make major infrastructural investments in the country. So I can assure the people of this country, as President Bio has said repeatedly, George him when he's done. And this is a commitment that he's made. So as I was pointing out, my brother mentioned travels. It's important to note that what he has done here, and he's a very brilliant man, is to mix data. This conversation was supposed to be for the past 6 months. He mixes data from the first 2018 and all, and put it all together to give. No, not on the travels. When you were referring to the economy and prices and all of that. On travels, for example, the first trips he mentioned UAE and China in March. What he didn't mention was that was one trip. It was on the way from China that His Excellency stopped in UAE to, again, advance the economic interest of this country. What is clear is that there is a certain, almost, I think, obsession with His Excellency's travels. This is a president that has led the true transformation.
To our viewers and listeners, it's 10 o'clock. Would just like to announce to you that today we would slightly overrun the program, and we apologize for any inconvenience this may cause to any of our audience. Continue.
So, when it comes to travel, this president has invested in a few things. One, he's been aggressive in trying to change the image of our country and attract foreign direct investments in the country. This is something that he succeeded in doing. He is actually gotten us to the Security Council. These travels are essential to enable us to get to the places that we need to get to as a state. So he is, as I've mentioned, just with the China, number of financial resources that we've been able to mobilize to bring to the country. My brother mentioned prices and said that we are in dire economic situation. He started with the pointing out that, for example, President Bio promised he was going to transform this economy. When His Excellency came to power, inflation rate was in double digits, was over 20% when he came to power. I think the last I saw was about 19 to 21% inflation rate. He reduced it in the first year in power to single digits. It was the first time we had gone to single digits in about 5 decades in this country. He did it. You know what happened? The global economy happened. COVID happened. The world shut down. Not a single economy was untouched. So when you're making this analysis, it's also fine and right to point out the context of this analysis. And in terms of the current trajectory of our economy, I'm happy he agrees with me that yes, we're headed in the right direction. We're not perfect, as you rightly pointed out. There are a lot of things, but if you mention health, for example, which he mentioned in passing, we have been awarded for being the country that has reduced maternal mortality at the fastest rate in the world. Fastest rate. We've bent the entire curve completely on maternal mortality. And now His Excellency has announced we're going to do the same thing with child mortality. Take education. We have achieved gender parity in terms of enrollment and 100% enrollment in general in terms of our school system. This is a country, when we were growing up, literacy rates were about, before President Bill came here, literacy rates were still in their 40s and 50% in this country. He is changing that in a very radical way. That is laying the foundation. And I'm happy you pointed out that the foundations of this country were always weak. He mentions WFP data, which is interesting. What I want to challenge him to do is to compare that data to before President Bill came to power, when we had the fastest growing economy, when we had an iron ore boom. What did WFP said, even at that time, about food security in this country and where people are? So what you should look at, and this is what any smart statistician will tell you, is you're not looking at station, you're looking at trajectory. You don't look at Usayude, you look at Usayude head. And by that measure, His Excellency's government is performing incredibly well and laying the foundation. And things are still tough, and I agree with my brother. We feel that pain. And some of us are in government because we want to contribute to transforming, we want to contribute to changing how things are. So I think that I want to invite folks who are talking about travels and, President likes to travel, to put it in context. I like when he was pointing out, many of the travels that people point out are statutory travels. He has to go there because he's the chairman of the C10. One of the things he didn't mention is President Biu went as well to Burkina Faso. The entire world relies on him to be the mediator for the military coups that are happening within the subcontinent. He's playing a leadership role, elevating the status of our country. So I think those contexts are really critical. And when you put those contexts when you put those things in context, you will see very clearly that actually there's no daylight between what we're both saying, which is things are bad, are tough, but the government has put in place intentional strategies. And one more thing he mentioned that I didn't get a chance to talk about is the Mineral Wealth Fund. At one point he mentioned that there's a Sierra Leonean playing a lead role in Mr. Kaifa Kagbo, and at another point he said he doesn't know whether a Sierra Leonean is capable of playing the role because he mentioned a certain person that he referred to as Russian. What I will say about the Mineral Wealth Fund is you have to understand, and I by the way, I put my hand up on one thing.
We have not yet provided as much information on the Mineral Wealth Fund as we ought to, and we're working on that. We'll come out and really explain to the public, because I think it's something that my brother Thomas will be, eventually, I think you will own that, you'll be proud of it, because it's saying we all take responsibility for our own mineral wealth and we push it forward. But government doesn't have the technical and all the capacity to do it well. So what we're doing with the Mineral Wealth Fund is we're partnering with private sector actors who have experience and expertise with government ownership. So we hire consultants, we hire people with the experience and the expertise to work on this Mineral Wealth Fund so that we can actually accrue the dividend that we're supposed to accrue. And I see that some of the media has been obsessed with just one of those individuals. But they work for an entity that is owned by the government of Sierra Leone. What you need to focus on is where are the dividends going, who is accruing the resources, how do we as a people, for the first time, I went to South Africa, and whenever we talk about the mines, they ask, why don't you nationalize, why don't you take control of your lands? The first president who is willing to do it boldly is His Excellency President Julius Malapio. In our entire history, keep in mind how long we've been talking about mines here and mineral wealth. We now have a national mineral wealth fund. It's something we should be excited about. It's something we should own as a country. It's something we should take pride in. And I think we're going to work towards ensuring that we do that.